Today we have on Curtis Dean. He's been a coach for the 1%, and you're the founder and CEO of StrangersOnly.co, which is a post-swim luxury brand.
Correct. I started a podcast in 2017 before they got really popular. I had some amazing, great actors, like phenomenal guests on there, but I was also in the midst of just starting a business, and I was like, it doesn't get easier. You just build up a reputation where you have enough of a backing and a client list where it just becomes kind of more on repeat because you've built up a reputation. So the whole visual aspect of the brand completely jumped up a scale, and it looked like, wow, this is a beautiful brand. But then we ran into manufacturing problems, which is very costly.
How do you deal with situations where you need to find a new path, a new service, a new offering?
So I'll kind of answer in a few layers here. People are addicted to feeling successful. And the addiction to feeling successful breeds feelings of failure to break your addiction to success. Because success depurposes you and failure repurposes you. So success ultimately takes you off your mission because now you're searching for more pleasure and you're going off track and you stop doing the things that got you there. And then when you fail, you start going back to the basics, to the things that actually got you there. So was that a disaster or was it a gift? For me, it's a gift because it opened a platform where 5.5 million people go to a site every day. I don't have that traffic on my own, but that door opened because I took an obstacle, I took a challenge. What's the advantages to this? There's a blessing because every crisis comes equal with a blessing. So I found the blessing in it, and that opened that door.
Welcome to Funds and Founders. This weekly show is tailored for Austin founders navigating the early stages of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host and fellow Austinite, Abhinav Sinha. If you're looking for the motivation and the insight needed to build a successful company, you're in the right place. Today we have on Curtis Dean. He's been a coach for the 1% since 2017, where you do visionary coaching, you run adventures, and we'll talk about more about what you're doing in that business. I think it's called bydean.co, right?
Yeah.
And you're the founder and CEO of StrangersOnly.co, which is a post-swim luxury brand.
Correct.
Sweet. Welcome to the show. I like to get started and just ask every guest, when did your entrepreneurial journey start? If you had to find a point in time.
I say find a point in time. It started when I was really in high school. There was a trip I wanted to go on, and my parents couldn't afford the trip. And so they said, well, you want to go on the trip, you need to figure out how you're going to be able to pay for the trip. And so basically what it was, like a snowboard trip during the winter time, during like your winter break.
Yeah.
And so I became a rep for the company. And so
Nice.
I went around school selling everyone this, $500 trip, learning sales, learning to collect money,
Nice.
pitching this trip. And so I'd say that's when my entrepreneur journey really began.
Nice. Did you cut an affiliate deal with them, or was it more you get a commission for every sale you make?
Basically, like you get a commission for every sale,
Nice.
and then you get enough sales and they give you a free trip and
Nice.
you get free other stuff, like depending on how many sales you hit.
How many did you end up hitting?
For that one, I got around like 40.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what did you get out of that? What was your...
I got a few free trips, and then
Nice.
I just built a relationship with them. And so like they kept asking me to like, hey, can you do this trip and this trip? And then I got to travel on other trips. So it just kind of like built this thing, and like I started to get paid to travel.
How did you even find out that that was an opportunity?
Someone prior, the year before, had like at another high school was like repping for this competitor brand. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I want to be able to go on this thing. And so like there was another company, and like I was connected with this other company, and I aligned with the guy who was like the actual sales rep who went around and managed all the different districts of cities. And so that's how it kind of happened.
Nice. Do you think it was more hustle, or why did you take that approach? There could have been so many approaches to getting the cash you needed for the trip, because you're saying it's $500, right? Why go this approach versus any other approach that you could have gone?
Yeah. So at the time I was playing baseball, and I really just loved the idea of this trip. And so for me, it was like, well, I think this is amazing. Like I'll sell it because I'm actually behind this, right? Like at an early age,
Makes sense.
I saw my dad going to work, working a 9-to-5, very blue collar job, and just kind of when I was younger, jumping around. And I was like, man, it doesn't seem like that. I don't want to live a life where I'm going to work for the sake of work. Like I want to really love what I do.
Yeah.
And so I learned at an early age, like that was so important to like love what you do.
Makes sense. Did you take that with you after school, college, and everything else of doing exactly what you love?
I've always been this individual who's had the courage, I'd say, to follow my heart and follow a call and pursue something that was really meaningful to me versus just chasing a dollar for the sake of security and safety and like, this is the way you do it. So through my life, I've made decisions where I'm really pursuing something that I actually love to do.
Can you walk me through one of those decisions you made after getting into the professional space of how do you make that decision of, hey, I want to take this job versus this job? Where does that come into play?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I was really into acting. So in like junior high, I'll kind of walk you through it.
Yeah.
I had like the lead role in the school play. And then after high school, I got back into acting again because I had a shoulder injury, baseball career ended. And I was like, well, I really love acting. Let me get back into that. So after a year of college of studying like psychology, sociology, all these like different ologies of human behavior, I jumped back into film acting. And I followed that for about 6 years. And
Nice.
like had agents, managers, worked with great actors.
Nice.
And then through that process, that career wasn't working. And really the reason I really psychologically deep down got into that was I figured if everyone else loved me because what I was doing, I learned to love myself. And that really, I got the feedback that this wasn't the path to do that. And that was the thing I was after the most. And so through journey of meeting different people and encounters, I came across some work, and basically that led me back into going back to school in a private institute and studying human behavior and going on this journey of a really deep self-discovery.
Nice. Is that how you ended up starting your own coaching business? Was that sort of the early stages of that?
Yeah, that was the early stages of like getting back into school, studying, educating myself. And then I was like, wow, this is like whatever I'm learning here. Like, I really love this. Cause like back in school, like there was only certain topics I loved to learn. And I just found myself thoroughly engaged. And so I just kept going and going. I was like, okay, I'm at this point where I could kind of jump off the mountain here and see if the chute opens. And if it doesn't, okay. But I'd rather take the risk than not take the risk. And so I just kind of eventually just jumped off, took the risk, and started my own coaching business and started taking on clients.
Nice. So let's start about starting this business, right? What were the early days like? Was it you have clients running in the second you start, or how does that journey progress for you?
Yeah. So before I'd like fully made the commitment, I was having some clients here and there, put on like a workshop for a weekend. And it eventually came to a time when I was just in a spot. I was like, this over here, what I was doing as the income was coming in wasn't really working.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think this is the opportunity to fully commit to myself and fully commit to this and go and do this. And as I did that, made that commitment, and my self-worth shifted internally, clients started to show up, right? I get an email, I get a text, hey, you got to meet this guy, like connect here. Opportunities would come. So as I aligned to that vision and that calling, the opportunities were matched to be able to start to build up that business.
So when you start a business like this that's reliant on either repeat service, bringing more clients in, did you ever struggle with outbound, inbound strategies? Because building a service business is a one-to-one relation to how much influence clients you have, right? Was that journey difficult in terms of establishing a good reputation, a client base? Because my understanding is sort of a visionary coaching business is very reputation-based, skill-based, and it's not as much as, oh, hey, I'm offering you X, it's better than because people gravitate towards certain kinds of coaches versus others, right? So does that limit the segment you're approaching? And how was that journey for you? Was it difficult to get to a point where you were comfortable having a decent client flow and decent number of bookings that way, or was that journey sort of difficult for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging journey to figure out which is your natural and authentic way to generate clients.
Yeah.
Because, online people pitch and sell so many different strategies of marketing, this and that. Yeah. But then there's a really organic way of like being who you are and aligning what's most important to you, and like it's building a reputation, right? This is not something that's like, oh, I'm this amazing coach all of a sudden. Like, it's a level of mastery, right? That you're putting in time and effort every day, like any skill you would apply if it's an art, a painter, or a writer, whatever it may be. I mean, it's a craft and you're dedicated to a craft. So it was definitely challenging because as you grow and you're building a reputation into this boutique service, and so it's very personal, of like a concierge almost, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't get easier. You just build up a reputation where you have enough of a backing and a client list where they're just like, hey, you have to meet this person. And it just becomes kind of more on repeat because you've built up a reputation. But it takes time to build that reputation. And there was times where I was, there's no clients for 2 months and other things are going on in my life. And so I really had to learn how to mitigate mind tangents and distractions that would take me away from my heartfelt service. But no, I mean, it's definitely a challenge and it takes time. I've been doing this for at least 10 years now of building the craft.
Do you think there's still more for you to learn in honing this craft and getting better at it?
Absolutely. I mean, I practice every day on working through my own stuff or working on other things related to the craft of how I help individuals. And so for me, I'm just looking at what's the greatest I can be with this? What can I learn today? What can I master today? How can I help someone like they're coming in with this challenge? How can I best help them? Where is my own blind spots, right? So I'm always looking at my own work and just honing the craft. So for me, it's an ever finer detail of mastery. And that's what I really love is the mastery of the craft.
Nice. Do you think there'll ever be a point where you would have quote unquote mastered it? Or is it always going to be a journey of building, growing, and getting better at it?
No, it's always going to be a journey of building, growing, getting better at it. I think just like if you were to take a painter like, Da Vinci or Michelangelo, right? It's a finer and finer detail. And it's falling in love with the craft, right? It's a mission I'm here to do, and it's falling in love with the mission. And as you grow and your skills shift and refinement, but no, I mean, I love to learn. And so the curiosity, like Einstein said, it's far greater to live with holy curiosity than to think you know everything.
Makes sense. In starting this business and building up the reputation, when you started it, did you think it would happen relatively easily, or was that longer than anticipated journey in getting to the point where you felt, okay, I've done a good job at this, I'm getting client inflow and it's panning out to have a client list? How long was that journey till you felt like that?
I think a little bit of it was ignorance is bliss philosophy of just like, hey, I'm going to screw it. Let's do it. The Richard Branson philosophy.
Yeah.
And I think through that, I was able to refine, and I'll hire my own coach who is amazing and work with me and help me structure and learn and things like that. So through that process, no, there's definitely a refinement and learning and taking the feedback through doing this.
How do you go from having a coaching business to, hey, I want to spin up my own apparel business?
Yeah, so I've had a love for fashion ever since I can remember. Like fashion's just been something like my thing that I love. And then when I was 25, I had a vision for an apparel brand. And at the time, this is before like you could sell on Instagram and Facebook and things like that. The direct-to-consumer market only existed like through stores. And so I started this brand. I had this idea, started the brand, started making t-shirts and tank tops and things, super, very simple. And it really just never took off. I wasn't in the right mental space to really handle it, grow it, the right strategy, structure, anything.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just stopped that. And then I carried these shirts around me for 10 years. And then eventually got COVID at the end of 2020. And after that, I was like, oh, it's time for me to go on a little like trip, solo, refresh. I'm just gonna go on a little trip. And I wanted a solo adventure down to Mexico. And the intention was, what else would I love to do with my life? Because at the time, I was doing my coaching, but there was some creativity within me that I just knew that was there. And so about day 5, I was sitting on the beach and I was reflecting, doing work. And all of a sudden this comes to me. I'm just sitting on the beach under a palm tree. It's like crystal blue skies, warm day. And it's like, design clothes, start a clothing company again. I was like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, start a clothing company. So the idea came to me while I was sitting on the beach. I was like, okay, great. So here I am. I don't have any connections to manufacturers. I was going to go to FITM, which is the Fashion Institute and Design Merchandising, after high school. But I was too afraid of what my dad would think of me going to a fashion school where it's 99% women and I'm the 1% male. And usually the 1% male are not straight males.
Yeah.
So I came back and I was like, okay, I'm going to start a fashion brand here in Austin. And I don't have any connections to anything. And that's how the idea emerged in January of 2021.
Okay. How long does it take to go from idea, Jan 21, to first product launch, to first sale happening? What was that journey for you?
So came back, came up with the name for the company, registered the company. And then I was working one day outside. Someone walks over like, oh, we started chatting. And I got an introduction to one of their friends who used a manufacturer in LA. So, all of a sudden now I have this connection as manufacturer. And
this was just happenstance.
Right. Just me out there literally working on some stuff with the business. I was doing some art direction for like, what am I going to design? And then someone crosses my path and then a door opens.
Nice.
And so I was able to have my first run of samples by late May of 2021. So we're talking less than 6 months. I was able to have that.
Nice.
Samples. And I had my first full run of 3 pairs of swim trunks by July of 2021. And so I was able to move relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And I credit that partly due to my love for textiles and fashion. I learned about fabric when I was very young. And so I already had an idea of like really what I would love to create. I had a skill set that was just of years and years and years of loving clothes. So that skill was already there of fabrics, fits, how I like things, right? I didn't need any like training on that. I had that skill set. So the doors of the manufacturing that was a big gatekeeper.
Makes sense. With that skill set that you had, I'm assuming your first sample runs were closer to what you wanted than traditionally speaking, right? Because for someone who's unaware of what they're doing, they're probably going to have a couple iterations.
The manufacturers I was working with, these great guys from LA, really knew what they were doing too, as far as like cutting the pattern and the fit. They had an in-house team.
Nice.
And so that was super helpful to work with these guys as well, because like the patterns came back like a perfect fit. We didn't have to change anything. Like it was very simple as far as that goes. But I can't say that's the case for what came next.
Yeah.
And the challenges that came after that.
What happens once you have your swim trunks? You said July 21, right?
Yeah.
What was the journey after?
Well, now it's building a website. So now it's like the branding aspects, building the site, like how am I going to sell these things, right? I had a delusion thinking, oh, because I love clothes, who's not going to like my clothes? Right? Who's not going to love what I design?
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because I love clothes. I have great taste in my...
You're always your best customer.
Right? And so for me, that became the hard part, is selling the clothes. And especially what I designed in a place like Austin became very challenging.
Can we talk through some of those challenges, right? So you said make a website.
Yeah.
How long did that take? How long did you think it would take? How long did it actually end up taking?
So I hired some guys who like were just really good at creating like basic Shopify sites. So the first site iteration was like super basic. The photography wasn't too bad. It wasn't amazing, but it was relatively decent.
Yeah.
And so this first iteration of the brand just got up and running. And I was literally like, I had an all white table and I was like doing photography, uploading new products myself and shooting and trying to edit. So I was like fully, washing the dishes, designing the dishes, doing everything here to get this going. And so that the first part was really just me getting this and like posting on my own social media, like, hey, design new clothes, here's what's coming. So that was this whole first iteration of just doing everything while still maintaining my coaching business.
Makes sense. So how do you go from there, having a site up brand, to when do you end up getting your first sale?
I think my first sale came to me, like, I like to get a little sun every day. And so like, I just meet people at the pool, like, hey, I love your trunks. Where'd you get those? And so the first sales was like me literally like delivering stuff, the product to people's doors if they lived somewhat near me.
Nice.
Just to give them that like more attention to detail service.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Along all this time, your site's up, you're doing some social media, some marketing, and you're also running the coaching business on the side. So how much time are you putting into this business versus the coaching business?
The coaching business was still at that time like where my main intention and focus was.
Yeah.
And I basically came to a spot where it's like, there's no way I could run a fashion brand by myself. It's impossible. Like, it's just too many pieces to do it. And so then I started to like look for a partner. And like, okay, it's time to bring on somebody to help me do this. I had new product come in because I had a new manufacturer. And so there became a point where I have all this product and I don't know how to sell it. I only have such a following and I can't be out just trying to like drag a clothing rack around everywhere I go with me to sell the clothes. And so then I started searching and trying to seek help. Like, hey, who knows how to do an e-commerce brand? It's not my strength. My strength is designing clothes, fabrics, fits, how it's going to look. Like anything else is not my thing. I'm good at relationship building, but as far as driving sales and marketing, like that's not my thing when it comes to online.
When did you realize that you're like, hey, this is too out of depth for me, I need to go? At what point? So this is roughly a year and a half into the journey of
this brand? This is like 10, 11 months into the journey, right? Because I have now product and I'm sitting on product and it's not moving. And I'm like, okay, this product's not selling. It's just sitting in boxes. It's all in my house, right? It's not selling. So I'm like, okay, it's time to like bring consultant on, bring help on.
Yeah. How do you go about finding that help?
I had a friend who basically ran a bunch of different e-commerce brands, sold them for a lot of money, different brands. And so he was a genius when it comes to digital marketing. Nice. And so I was like, well, maybe this guy will be a good fit. And so that spent a decent amount of money and it just like was not a good fit for the brand. Yeah. And then I had someone approach me in my gym I worked out at because he was buying my swimwear and buying the loungewear I was designing for him and his wife. And he's like, hey, you ever thought about having a partner? I was like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually looking for one right now. And I was like, well, he's like, I love what you design. I love clothes. Like, I love to be a fit. And he owned a branding agency that does, stuff for like Facebook and Dell, like, Fortune 500 companies. Nice. And so we had a meeting and sure enough, I was like, okay, like I'm going to sell you 50% of my baby here. And so I brought him on in January of 2022.
Okay. And since then, has that been an upward journey since then of bringing him on as a branding consultant?
Yeah. So he came in and we kind of shifted the visuals of the brand around. The website changed. We brought in different photographer. So the whole visual aspect of the brand just like completely jumped up a scale and it looked like, wow, this is a beautiful brand. But then we ran into manufacturing problems and issues, which is very costly. And it's
what kind of issues, if you could say?
Yeah. So with manufacturers, a lot of times like they'll send you a product and like you'll get your sample and you make your adjustments, you get the second one. They're usually pretty good around like the second one being really solid. So you're hoping, okay, great, looks great.
I'm going to put in an order.
I'm going to put in an order of, let's just say 1,200 pieces here. And when that 1,200 piece comes in, when they messed up on it, it's a fight. And one of them I had to basically tell them, I already had paid for it. But I said, I'm not going to do any more business with you. I'm not going to pay for what's to come if this doesn't get fixed. So they fixed that. But then we had an order of about 1,300 units and the whole fit was just off. And so I had to think, how am I going to sell these? Visually show these to sell because the fit is so off. And so you're sitting now with a $16,000 you just paid. And so those are really big issues, especially when you're fresh, of what you can make versus now, like, wow, we just have 1,200 pieces here, units that are just completely not a fit.
How do you tackle that? How do you deal with that? How do you figure out what next steps are? Because you're traditionally not from the e-com space. So I'm assuming this is a new challenge every time you...
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I did was write all the benefits down of it not being the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I could actually see the advantages
of what's
coming, right? Yeah. To calm down my emotions and say, okay, these are messed up. There's another side to it, right? Nothing's one-sided in life. So what's the other side? What's the benefits to me that these are not right? And so I came up with those until I was grateful for what occurred. There's many benefits that I've learned out of this, right? Out of this process. And because of the type of fabrics I picked to design with, they're high quality. I'm not just picking the generic cotton that you're going to go find. I'm picking very fine fabrics that are soft on the touch, that are high quality, that hold up and wash. And so displaying that digitally is really hard.
Yeah.
How do you convey like, hey, this is a $125 sweatshirt as a new brand, right? And a lot of people don't trust new brands. What is this brand? Is this a fake brand? Like what's the deal here? And so we started to do pop-ups. And so our first pop-up we had was at the pool I lived at in downtown. I lived in a brand new condo in downtown. And so we had a pop-up on the 30th floor of the pool, had a DJ, my buddy did a drink sponsor, and we had a party and sold clothes. So that was like the first iteration of like actually having sales, because the clothes sell better in person. And so that was something I knew, but I had to like discover actually like, hey, the clothes are going to sell better in person.
Was the fit an issue in selling the pop-ups, or that's just the fit? And because
so I didn't, for those sweatshirts, I think we put them out, but it was at this point, it's July in Texas.
Yeah.
So we were really focused on our t-shirts, our swim trunks, and our post-swim shorts, and just really pumping that, and our hats we had, right? So that was like the main focus. And then our like sweat shorts we had of just like our first of like selling and getting this out there. So like I wasn't too concerned at that moment because it was the dead of...
Not the season.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty cool. All this while you're still running your coaching business.
Yes.
What kind of hours are you putting in right now to do both e-com, coaching?
So at the time I was doing probably around 20 hours of coaching, which is considered pretty much full-time.
Yeah.
20 hours a week.
Because there's prep work and there's other stuff involved.
Yeah.
And you can't just show up to a session.
Yeah. It's like if you were in a quote-unquote therapy business, 20 hours is considered a full load.
Okay.
So at that time, I'm living in downtown. All the clothes live with me. I have one room completely dedicated to clothing. I have the bathroom, and the first bathroom in my condo I'm in, all the cupboards are filled with clothes. The bathtub is stacked with t-shirts. And so the clothes are just coming out everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, we now have just tons of clothes to sell, right? Because we placed a $50,000 order, basically. So we have massive amounts of clothes to sell, and they're all with me. I'm running a coaching business at the same time, running this business, and my business partner, he's got his own little thing going on, and this is kind of like more of a side project for him, not his main thing. You know, there's times where I looked at the clothes, I was like, I just want to fucking burn the clothes. I didn't think I would hear myself say that, but I was like, these are not selling. Like, what? Am I a bad designer? Do people not like my clothes? Like, the clothes are great. They fit, like, you know, because most of the clothes fit really well. There's a few things that were off and you learned, but the quality was there. And so I'm starting out thinking like how this is going to work.
Yeah. How do you tackle that? How do you deal with that?
So what came next out of that was I did a pop-up at the Standard Spa in Miami Beach. And I was like, okay, people like the clothes, but these people aren't from Texas. They're from New York. They're from Brooklyn. They're from Miami. They're from different parts. And the Standard Spa is a very certain type of consumer who goes there. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, these people, they're not complaining about the price. They like the clothes. They're buying the clothes. So I know I have a market, right? And so I was like, okay, we have to sell clothes in person. Like, online space, don't waste money there. Like, so my mind starts going, it's like, okay, how do we get these clothes to sell in person?
Yeah.
And fast forward to last May of 2023, I started to do pop-ups with Soho House. The clothes started to sell really well there. Like, we do a one-day party.
Similar audience.
And then I did one in Nashville, one in Miami. And it's like, okay, the clothes are selling. And so I thought it would be a genius idea to find us a little pop-up space and a store. And we were going to open a store in Clarksville. And then the rent was just astronomical, what they were asking for, just ridiculous. I still don't understand how you could even charge that amount of money. It's more expensive than what you pay in West Village.
Yeah.
And so we turned down that deal because it would just be horrendous. And then I ended up finding another space in downtown and thought, okay, well, we have a ton of swimwear. We have a ton of shorts. This will
downtown Austin, right?
In downtown Austin on 2nd Street. And I was like, okay, like, we're by hotels. I'll go to every hotel. I'll talk to all the concierges. I'll drop them all cards or thank you cards. I'll write discount codes on all of them for all their guests. So I spent, like, we ended up getting the store. I designed the store, opened the store within a week. So, like, really minimal, cool looking, artistic design store, like a little bit bigger than we wanted, but that was a space we had. And so as we opened, I went to all the hotels in downtown, the soaking hot summer, and like gave them all cards and like, okay, cool, I'm gonna meet all the concierges, send all your people here. People don't pack swimwear all the time. This will be great. And it was really like crickets. Like during the weekdays, it's like no one's walking in there. And in this time, I'm still running my coaching business as well. And I'm now like, wow, I'm sitting in my store. All my clothes are in the store. And like no one's coming in here, but on like maybe Fridays a little bit and Saturdays.
Yeah.
And again, when we did have people come in, the response is the same. Like, we love the clothes. The clothes are great. But we just didn't have enough foot traffic on a daily basis. And so I had to basically call the landlord, send him an email and say, I'll be out on Friday. We can't pay you anymore. So I'll turn over the key and everything will be gone by X date.
Was that a difficult decision to make?
Yeah, because we just spent $12,000 to open a store, and I was able to design it on like a tiny budget, just really artistically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're open a store and you're now shutting down something you opened, hoping that it would have like taken off, and the market just wasn't there for that. So it's quite a challenge to shut that down.
Can we quickly just run through numbers of what does it take to get a store up and running, right? I'm asking from the point of view of someone listening, if they have an apparel brand.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, should I go store route or not? Are you able to talk through just rough numbers of, hey, here's rent, here's cost, here's build cost. And if I start today, I get it up in 30 days, 40 days, whatever.
So the next time I open a store, it's going to be a lot more money, right? This was like you're paying first month's rent, a security deposit. The contract's very simple because it was a pop-up space. Like this isn't long-term deals. Yeah. But I mean, to open a store on the level I see a store next, like you're bringing in like my friend who's a designer who designs stores. To open a really nice store at the level, you're going to spend $250,000 to open a store. Yeah. Right. And at the same time, like you as the owner, like if someone's listening, they love fashion and they want to start the brand, you have to really decide of how you love to interact with people. Are you more of someone who just wants to be digital, or do you love that face-to-face component? Because if you leave that out and you're not getting that, it's a piece of you that's missing that 100%. You love to have in that space. Right. So it's 100%. Really as a brand of, do the clothes sell better in person, or are we able to just pump sales online? Because you have to make those decisions of what's really authentic there. Yeah. But I'd say a proper store, like to do it right, is at least $250,000.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because in my mind, there's so many fixed costs that you will not see return on. Right. For at least a year or two. Right. Like if you keep the store open. Yeah. And so there's build out, there's inventory, there's however you want to lay out the store. There's always going to be some fixed build out cost that is basically just dead money until the store.
Yeah, and they usually give you a little TI money, but not what ultimately what you're going to bring. I have a friend who owns some really, really high end retail in South Africa, and he gave me some great advice. He's like, listen, when you open a store, like his stores now cost $500,000 to open. Okay.
Because it's reached a certain scale size.
Right. So he's like, do not skimp on the build up, because if you're selling stuff at a certain price, like when they walk into the store, they must feel
premium.
Like, yeah.
I live up in the Domain, and there's a lot of turnover there. A lot of turnover of stores. Very few stores have like stuck around. I've been there probably 6 years now. Yeah. But every time a store shuts down, they have like a closeout sale, so to say, and I've gone in every time. And rustic furniture, boutique shelves, really well built out store, but for whatever reason they're shutting down. And so they start selling everything, right? They're like, hey, let's get whatever we can. And the prices on these furniture items are absurd. These are just solid wood rustic pieces, but even a small table is like $2,000. And this is what they're like selling it off of to just write off. Right. And I'm just thinking, how much does it cost for this person to set up? If they're reselling at this price, it probably costs them at least 50% more, if not more, right? So that was the first time I understood, okay, setting up a store is not, it's not easy. Like you got to put in a lot of work, and there's a really high barrier to entry. So, going back to your coaching business a little bit, what is the most difficult part about running this sort of business?
I think the most difficult part of running the business is there's a few components. of running a coaching business, the first thing is really getting clear on like, hey, is this what you really, really love to do? Because it's a service dedicated to helping another individual, like regardless of whatever your coaching niche is, right? So say the first thing is, do you really love human beings? Like, do you want to deal with human issues? And so I'd say one of the challenges that I came into throughout my iterations of this was really understanding like, hey, this is what I'm here to do. And like part of that is you got to get out of your own fucking way. And like, hey, this is your craft. This is what you're here to love to do. And like that is like one component as like for individuals, like you have to love that. But also too is like, I'd say maybe not running the business, more so of understanding people's strategies of clients you work with and understanding strategies that they have in order to maybe avoid certain things like that. So it's a challenging in the aspect of you're dealing with a complex human being with issues and strategies to possibly avoid not to look at certain things. At times, you have to be very confrontational. It's not because you're being a dick, it's because you care about the person.
Yeah.
And so there's parts of you that have to be very confrontational to be able to handle those aspects of your own being.
Yeah. Was that a challenge for you starting out in doing this? I personally don't like being confrontational. Yeah. So I try to avoid situations or try to create situations where that's never an outcome, right? But just personally for you, has that been a challenge? Was that a challenge to grow into?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you start a business, like, well, if I confront them, are they going to leave?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to have like, then my clients are going to be gone. What am I going to do? Right. So it's this like fine dance of like, but then if I don't, like I'm holding back on results for them. And so part of that was really, as you know, Machiavelli said in The Prince, the book he wrote for other princes during that time, was you have to be willing to embrace the lion and the fox, and at any time be able to embrace either the fox within you or the lion within you. And you can't really self-actualize your life until you're willing to own both of those parts. So it's been my own journey in being able to know myself deeply and learn to love the sides of myself that can handle the confrontation and handle someone not liking you. And I'll tie it back into clothing. Like, okay, cool. There's people, like I could say that the city of Austin and Texas is not my ideal market for strangers only. And that's okay. Yeah. There's feedback. There's nothing wrong with that. And so learning to say, okay, people don't like what I design here. I could do three things. I could quit. I could cater to the state, or I could say my vision's bigger than the state. I'm going to go where my clothes I know I'm going to sell, and they're redirecting me into a bigger audience to get the clothing out there. And I'm not going to take it personal. I'm just going to take it as a redirection.
Yeah.
And so that's been helpful. I'll embrace that part. That's okay. And I'll make adjustments.
When making adjustments, making these difficult decisions, how do you deal with them, right? Because personally, like I run an agency, and there's always these points where I'm like, let me just shut it down. I don't want to do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
But I think of some pivot, or I think of some other angle for me to try out to keep it interesting, right? There's the mundane side of the business, which you just have to do because every business involves that. But then there's the fun side of it, which is what I like, right? So I try to always find a path where I'm trying to do as much of the fun stuff as I can, but either I have processes or systems in place for the mundane stuff. When pivoting a business, I used to earlier feel like, oh, I failed. I failed on whatever my initial path was, and so I got to find another path. And initially that was a little difficult for me to get over that hurdle of thinking of it as a failure, but I don't think of it as a failure anymore. I just think of it more as a, how do I keep doing the things I love doing? And whether that's a new path, a different product, or a different service, now I don't care anymore. Now I'm like, this is the thing I love doing, the problem solving, the building, the software. So let me go find how I can keep doing this. Whether it's moving up market, down market, mid market, whether it's pivoting my service, I've sort of come to that realization. But the question I want to ask is more, how do you deal with those situations where you need to find a new path, a new pivot, a new service, a new offering, or just a different part of the business? Is it hard to deal with? Do you have challenges, or have you found a way to pivot your...
Yeah, so I'll kind of answer in a few layers here. The first off is if you love something, you're willing to embrace pain and pleasure, support and challenge, praise and reprimand equally because you truly love it.
Yeah.
Right? So when people quit on something, it's because actually it's not high enough in their values. It's not important enough for them to continue to carry on. So quitting's not a bad thing. It's just showing you that, hey, this actually isn't important as you thought it was, right?
100%.
So I think that's like the first piece. The second piece is people are addicted to feeling successful, and the addiction to feeling successful breeds feelings of failure to break your addiction to success, because success depurposes you and failure repurposes you. So success ultimately takes you off your mission because now you're searching for more pleasure and you're going off track and you stop doing the things that got you there.
100%.
And then when you fail, you start going back to the basics, to the things that actually got you there. So my mind, I'm not attached to success or failure. And obviously I run a business for money. And so as any business does, and I love what I do, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep the business alive.
Yeah.
And so when I have to pivot, for instance, I'll give you a story. We did a trade show at the Surf Expo in Orlando last year. We go to the Surf Expo. I'm like, great. Surf Expo is going to be our thing. Swim. We've got great swimwear. We're super high-end swimwear. We got put in the wrong section. And I show up. The clothing racks I ordered, the tables I ordered, oh, sorry, we're out. And so I'm just having a field day with like this company who supplies all the racks and just like hand it to them. And so someone on my team's got to go to now Walmart to buy clothing racks, this and that. And I end up having this lovely lady next to me who sold like bikinis and like family stuff for like matchy, way off anything. I end up meeting one of the guys whose brands I actually really liked and who was kind of like an inspiration to me. And he came over and was just like looking at the clothes. He's like, is this your brand? He's like, dude, I was like, I love your stuff. And this guy sells millions of dollars. And I was like, okay, if he likes it, his brand is big, doing millions of dollars per year. I have something here. Like, I know it. Because of the spot we got put in, because of all this shit I had to deal with there, I was like, all right, well, what's the benefit? The woman who was next to me had like helped me set up and steam clothes because we had such a disaster. She opened the door for me to get into Macy's.
Nice.
So if it wasn't for being in the wrong spots, right, and having this situation, I now wouldn't be on Macy's. And now Macy's is using my brand advertised for men's.
Nice.
So was that a disaster or was it a gift? For me, it's a gift because it opened a platform where 5.5 million people go to a site every day. I don't have that traffic on my own, but that door opened because of I took an obstacle. I took a challenge. What's the advantages to this? There's a blessing because every crisis comes equal with a blessing. So I found the blessing in it, and that opened that door.
I really like that perspective because I feel like the human tendency is, oh, if this didn't work out, let me forget about it.
Right.
Lost cause, lost money, whatever, right? Lost venture. And I feel like the approach of, hey, this thing didn't work out, but what can work out given this current situation, right? And I think a lot of people don't think about failures that way. I don't want to say failure per se, but don't think about, down points in their life that way of like, what's the upside?
Right.
Because there's always upside. It's just perspective on, can you find and think about it that way?
Right.
But
every major obstacle I face and challenge, or however you want to define it as, has been a huge gift and blessing.
The learning you get out of it, the perspective you get out of it, I think comes from just mindset, experience, maturity. Because earlier, 10 years ago, I would just be like, oh, hey, this didn't work out. I would be so sad about it, so like troubled about it. But I'm like, this shouldn't affect me. I should find my path up. I should find the positive thing in this, move on, and, find some learning from this.
Yeah. Most people don't want to look at the positive and actually see the negative out of it. And I'll give you an example. When I was 16, I had a dream since I was 5 years old to win a World Series in baseball. And at 16, I achieved that dream. And my performance after that, because I achieved this goal I've had for 11 years, right? Finally achieved this goal, win the entire World Series, best team in the world at 16 years old. My performance went so far down after because I didn't have any goals bigger than that after, right? Like the career of playing a professional and things like that, like it wasn't deep enough rooted in me. And so like that was really a thing of being completely like depurposed.
Yeah.
Of just performance going completely down because I hit this milestone.
Did you lose motivation or what happened? Or was it just, hey, I'm the best. I don't need to put in any more time into
There was a few components of like now at a certain age of like, hey, you need to go to work. You got to pay for you pay for things too. So there was that was combined with it.
Yeah.
And I'd also say it was a start of a direction to bring me back into who I genuinely like deep down with the creativity and what I was on my major mission was. But I could truly say like, yeah, I didn't maybe work as hard. I didn't put in those extra things, and there was components that come into it, but I still could have trained more, right? I could have said no to certain things,
100%.
but I didn't because of, oh yeah, like, come on, we just won the World Series. Like, we're the best. Like,
pivoting a little to the brand.
Yeah.
You said the lady next to you helped you get into Macy's,
Yeah.
right? Getting into Macy's, really big feat. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
What do people not tell you about getting into a big retailer like Macy's?
The amount of work it takes to get everything set up. It's a ton of work getting in there. And then you kind of learn Macy's has a certain audience, right? So Macy's might be my long-term audience, but for short-term, it's a great way to grow the brand. But I'd say the amount of like work it takes just to get up and running and to do things, it's so tedious, and there's so many different points because of their back end system and how that's all structured. And so I'd say that was probably the biggest just headache of my life, of dealing with those little pieces of actually getting the product on their website.
Can you walk through one or two of those?
I mean, basically they send you like this 30-page deck, and they give you like one little brief call, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and here's your Excel sheet, and follow these guidelines. And it just like nothing is clear around this. And it's not the people's fault who necessarily are sharing this. It's like, hey, we need to have some more clear visuals on how this is really set up.
Yeah.
But there's just so many different tedious of how when someone could go in the search menu and search for what
tags and stuff.
All that stuff, which is just out of my complete league of knowledge.
What's next for you on the coaching business side and on the strangers only side?
So for the coaching, what's next is I'm going to start offering these things called refresh adventures. Basically, I'm recreating what I sold back in high school, but adding personal development to it.
Nice.
Because I love helping people be able to activate and awaken to their unique creative genius and really create something they love with their life and have them get out of their own way. So I want to implement that though with travel and going to these beautiful places and connecting global people together. So that's a piece that I'm going to start just implementing and like slowly growing piece by piece, and eventually be putting on those at least 6 times a year. With the Strangers Only, what's next for Strangers Only is we're working on Nordstrom right now.
Nice.
So Nordstrom's in the works, but eventually I'm going to take the brand to New York City. And I'm going to have a store either in Soho, West Village, or Williamsburg. Ideally, West Village will be great in the next 2 years. And I want to have a flagship store that's in Manhattan and New York, fashion capital of America, and have it and grow it there.
Nice. That sounds both exciting and a lot to take on.
Yeah.
In terms of managing both of these. But I'm assuming you have certain systems and processes in place, and there's some stuff that will take a lot of time, but then there's other things that are easier for you to manage when doing both things
I think
at the same time.
As that grows, the right people will show up, and through the process of like, okay, what can I now delegate to be done?
Yeah.
But I mean, no doubt there's going to be massive challenges and hurdles that are going to come with, moving a whole life
100%.
to New York, right? For the sake of the mission, but that's the mission calls for it. I go.
Yeah. I have a couple questions I ask everyone I come on, which is more just work style, lifestyle and stuff.
Yeah.
So what are 3 resources that you would recommend to someone listening? This could be a podcast, book, journal, or a blog article, whatever you want, but something to help them in their journey of building their venture.
Of building a brand.
Anything. Any sort of 3 resource recommendations, whether they're building their own agency business, coaching business, brand business, but they're early in their journey of whatever venture they're building.
I'd say the first thing to start with is really the more you know yourself and the more you get clear on who you are, the greatest advantage you're going to have. An individual I love learning from the most, and I think who is the top when it comes to human behavior and to really help someone get out of their own way and has a ton of free resources online and a podcast and blogs and vlogs you could listen to and watch, is Dr. John DeMartini.
Okay.
Nice. So that would be my first go-to resource as far as helping someone that way. Second is I would recommend studying like great minds from the past, from John D. Rockefeller to, Charlie Munger, to going back and studying philosophy, because there's great wisdom that is still true today, Marcus Aurelius, and really studying and understanding, because if you don't understand how the mind works and are not developing yourself from the neck above, you're really, really going to struggle with all types of challenges as an entrepreneur. And if you're not training your mind on how to do that, it's going to be really hard.
There's a really good podcast I would recommend. I don't know if you've heard it. It's called How to Take Over the World. The host, Ben Wilson, what he does is he'll read like everything about Walt Disney. And then he has like a 2-3 hour episode on Walt Disney, why he's successful, his traits, whatever, like just a full breakdown of what you're talking about. So I would check that out if you like that kind of stuff. What would you say is your startup stack or tech stack? How do you manage your businesses? So for example, Notion plus Google Drive plus Evernote plus QuickBooks or whatever. What's your stack for managing your businesses?
I'm super basic when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
We use like Google Drive. I use Slack for communication.
Yeah.
And I use Figma for design.
Nice.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Simple and sweet.
Yeah.
What would you say is your support system? What allows you to be able to build both these businesses, be on this journey, the entrepreneurial grind? Do you have a support system, or what is that for you?
Yeah, so I have, daily accountability with a friend of mine who's used to be a famous musician, and now she basically helps musicians with their mind.
Nice.
And really helping them expand and empower their lives. But I also hire a coach, right? So I also coach, but I hire, someone who's very amazing at what they do, been doing it a very long time, to help me stay in check and check me on my own blind spots. So I'm constantly working on my mind to keep it sharp, keep working through my own emotional charges, hurdles that come up, obstacles that get in the way, to consistently keep me centered. Nice. And so I'd say that is the greatest piece, is like work on your mind,
100%.
Not just your body.
For someone listening, how do they go about finding a coach? Because I feel like in today's world, it's very hard to find a coach that vibes with you in terms of your style, your thinking, whatever, and also is able to bring the amount of impact that you want, right? So I've never worked with a coach personally. And so every time I talk to one of considering, hey, let's figure out some working relationship here, I just start second guessing that, like, oh, is he in it for the right reasons? Like, hey, what's the goal here? Is he just trying to, do like extended sessions? Because I think there's a weird fallacy here where a coach is never incentivized to completely fix whatever the issue is, because then I don't need the coach anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the preconceived notion I always have, which is probably not the right notion, but it's just not being from the space, not having worked with or not directly seeing the impact. I don't know how to go find. So just wanted to get your thoughts on how should someone think about this? How do they go about finding someone? How do they go about vetting them? How do they go about trying out and seeing, hey, is this the right fit or not?
Right. So I'd say certain people at certain levels are different of what they're looking for.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, if we just take someone like, instance, I'm going to use a very big example here, but Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan had a personal coach for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
He knew how important that was to his development growth. Now, people, you mentioned, okay, well, maybe this coach isn't going to solve everything for me, but every new level you reach, there's new issues. So I think you're going to solve and become this moment of enlightenment is anyone who sells you that selling you fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
First of all. Secondly, you don't stop going to the gym when you hit a certain level. Oh, I'm healthy. My body looks a certain way. If you stop, well, what happens to your body, right? So for 100%. Me, it's really like you're buffing up the brain.
100%.
And as you restructure your mind, you're going from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. Sometimes you might have an issue with the relationship. Cool, I want this relationship issue solved, and that's all you want. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I build a coaching business I'm looking for people who are global thinkers, who know how important the coaching is for their life. As Warren Buffett said, the best investment you'll ever make is investment in yourself.
Yeah.
I'm looking for those individuals who see their own mind as a beautiful investment that helps them empower all these areas of life. And so for them, it's a consistent dedication of, hey, this is not like a short-term thing. We're going to get great results in a short term, but this is a long-term play for my entire life. And that's how I like to personally look at it. And so for individuals looking out for coaching, I say, really, what's the results you're really after? And just to make sure, can that person deliver on those results?
Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And each person, you're at a certain level, there'll be a certain person who resonates at that level for you.
Makes sense. I ask every guest to give me a question for a future guest. So your question is, if you were God, what is one thing that you could change? And you're only allowed to change one thing.
Nothing.
You wouldn't change anything?
Wouldn't change anything. If people are looking for the perfect world, they're missing the world they're living in. And it's because they have their own judgments and subjective biases on that. And so it's really like, you don't have to get rid of half yourself to love yourself. You don't have to get rid of half of others to love them. And once people can understand of a true gratitude and appreciation for who they are and the magnificence of what they're capable of doing and achieving with their life, if it's no longer useful, why is it still here, right? If people are trying to get rid of things. So I don't think there's anything to change.
100%. I really love your perspective on a lot of things, right? Because I think the way to look at any situation changes the outcome of the situation, changes the outcome of what you get out of the situation. And I just want to say I love your approach to how you think about these things. Sweet. What's your question for a future guest?
Question for a future guest. Oh, that's a great question. What's the one thing you would absolutely love to dedicate the rest of your life to?
Sweet. Whenever I ask that, I will let you know what they're thinking.
Great.
Thank you for coming on.
Amazing.
Where can listeners find you? What do you want to tell them about your businesses, if anything? And we'll link everything in the description. But if there's anything you want to let listeners know.
Amazing. Yeah. So you could check out the Instagram at the Curtis Dean. My coaching company is bydean.co. And for Strangers Only, we're strangersonly.co. And the Instagram for that is Strangers Only Clothing. And those are all the spots you could find me and my brands.
Sweet. And what's the best way to reach out to you if anyone wants to reach out? What's the best channel?
Yeah. I'd say just shoot me a little message on Instagram. Is probably the best way. Give me a little follow and shoot me a little message there. Nice. Would be the greatest way. All the links are on there, so you can have access to my email. Everything's on there for you to reach out
Sweet. Yeah, we'll link everything, but that should be good. Well, thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into Funds and Founders. If you're a local Austin founder, a venture capitalist, or just someone who's building and in the middle of their journey and would like to be featured on an upcoming episode, submit your guest pitch to abhinavsinha.podcast@gmail.com. If you have a founder-specific event you'd like to promote on the podcast, you can also reach out to me. If you want to continue to get support through your founder journey, hit the follow button and I'll see you in the next episode.